Let's talk about configuration of groups, roles, organizations and users in Zammad. This video is part of an upcoming series that guides you through basic configurations. I will do my best to group relevant topics together and provide a wider view. Technically, you can also administer all shown features via Zammad's powerful API. To keep this video shorter and simple, we will ignore these use cases entirely. First things first, groups. Groups are the most basic and important thing in Zammad, as it allows data separation of tickets. Think of a group like a folder with different letters. They can help in organizing tickets in departments or topics as well. Access to groups is controlled via access levels that we will talk about at a later point. But that's not all. Groups hold several settings that can be different per group. In Zammad, each group decides on the outgoing email address to use, if any. A very common mistake is a group without email address. It causes your agent being unable to reply to incoming emails. It also can decide if inactive ticket owners are unassigned after some period of time. For that, you can provide a value in minutes to the assigned timeout setting. Keep in mind that this setting ignores business hours. Another relevant setting pair is follow-up possible and assign follow-ups. With this, you can disable follow-ups to closed tickets entirely, after a certain time, or simply allow it. This can restrict your customer from reopening that 1-2-year-old ticket they created and just grows into infinity. If you set assign follow-ups to no, a follow-up of a customer will cost Zammad to remove the assigned ticket owner. The email setting defines the outgoing email address Zammad is going to use upon a trigger or agent-based reply. If the setting is empty, no emails can be sent out to the customer from that group at all. To be able to change the setting to an email address, you will have to add an email account first. With the signature settings, you can define the group's signature. Each group can have one signature. Signatures can also be dynamic to fit independent agents better, but are not available on a per-agent basis. Zammad comes with a shared draft function that you can en or disable per group. This functionality can be a useful function in terms of teamwork. The note field is for your personal notes, like in many places within Zammad's functions. It won't be available to others than administrators. Right now you can't remove groups. If you no longer need a group, you can disable it if you want to. Keep in mind that you can't access tickets that are part of this group if it's set to inactive. Groups can have a parent which allows you to configure whole group trees if needed. Keep in mind that the configuration of anything that involves access to groups or filtering based on these may get a bit more complicated. Roles in Zammad are basically a set of permissions a group of users may have. This does not just affect the access to tickets in groups, but also specific management parts, the user profile and generally the type of the user. A role always adds permissions. You cannot reduce permission sets. Roles also help you to reduce duplicate settings and provides much easier permission control over manual administration of single users. If you are using software as a service, note that users with agent permissions are counted towards the agent limit. Normal customers or administrator-only accounts are not counted. The starter package does not come with a role management. Generally, you can provide full or granular access to Zammad's web administration, agent access to the chat and CTI function, reader or editor permission for the knowledge base, the onboard reporting, ticket access as agent or customer, and user preferences. Note that the reporting interface is not suitable for customers, as it technically can leak user information to other customers. Reporting profiles cannot be limited on a user or role basis and thus are not suitable for this task. I believe that the permissions are fairly self-describing on most parts. The ticket permissions define how the interface behaves mainly. While the interface looks the same no matter if customer or agent, agents have a different ticket dialog and other overviews. Ticket agents can't just have permissions to groups, which we will come to in a moment, but also are able to add new customers during the creation of a ticket. This is one of the core steps an agent can take and cannot be disabled. Tickets can't exist without their group and customer. While you can provide customers with all user preferences, some of them will be useless to them. The most relevant settings that are not available to customers are notifications and the out-of-office function. The notification channel mainly affects your agents. If you want to inform your customers about ticket updates, new tickets and so on, you will have to configure triggers for that. A function that might not be relevant to your customers is the option to create access tokens. This is relevant for API access. You can configure group permissions within agent roles to your needs. Zammad knows 5 permission stages: read to view tickets, create for the ticket creation, change for updating existing tickets, overview to have the tickets listed in overviews, and full, which combines all previously mentioned permissions. If you want Zammad to assign one or several roles as default role to new created users, you can set the setting default at sign up to yes. Keep in mind that this can and should only be done to customer roles. Otherwise, newly created users may have higher permissions, which could lead to data leaks. The node field is for your personal nodes, like in many places within Zammad's functions. It won't be available to others than administrators. For an easier management of roles and their assignment, I prefer to have a basic role for agents. This role contains all permissions required for agents, especially the profile permissions. I also prefer agents to have creation permission on all groups by default. You could implement this on a role basis as well. But if you add a new group, you potentially would have to add it to many roles. I then create a role for each group or department. You can choose what fits best for you at this point. This will also help you with role mappings for the LDAP integration, if you plan to use that at some point. You can use organizations in different ways. The general approach is that the organization of a customer is the company they work for. Alternatively, you could also have a more department-based approach. As Zammad allows secondary organizations, this might be helpful in user organization. You should keep one thing in mind though. In the current way Zammad works and behaves, organizations with a lot of agents may be troublesome, as Zammad has to index a lot more of information than it would have to do with customer's ticket. If you enable the shared organization setting of an organization, all members of it will be able to read and answer tickets. This is interesting for service providers, where the customer might have limits on how many tickets they may submit without paying extra. With this, your customer's user can recognize already open tickets without opening a duplicate one, at least hopefully. You can and should set the setting to no for internal organizations, especially if Zammad also houses human resources, to protect the privacy of your colleagues. In the domain field, you can provide one email domain of the organization. Right now, you cannot have a list of domains in place. This is relevant for the domain-based assignment and allows to automatically add affected users to the organization if they create their first ticket. This does not update already existing users. The user must be created newly, no matter if manually by an agent or via a newly submitted ticket. The VIP function allows you to visualize that the organization in question is something special. For example, you could mark the organization as a paying organization for, let's say, service contracts. This way you won't have to highlight every customer of that organization manually, especially if they have a high fluctuation in their company. The node field is for your personal nodes, like in many places within Zammad's functions. It won't be available to others than administrators. If you no longer require an organization, you can disable it. Removal is possible via the data privacy functionality if you remove the last assigned organization user. Possibly this will change in the future. The organization management is one of the few places in Zammad where you can import or update existing tickets via CSV. I will provide a short standalone explanation video in the future on this topic. Now that we have talked about groups, roles and organizations, it's time to talk about users. A user in Zammad generally can be an administrator, agent or customer, or all of that. This also means, unlike other systems like OTRS and Snuni, customers have to be a user account. A ticket requires a group and a customer. The agent as a ticket owner is technically optional. As administrator, you can add new users manually via the user management. Users can be part of an organization and also be member of several secondary organizations. In this dialog, you can configure the required roles the user needs. If you do not take any roles, Zammad will use the default sign-up roles. This behaves the same way as if an agent would add a new user during the ticket creation. If you select a role with agent permission, Zammad will additionally provide the group permission matrix. This only appears if you have more than one group in the system. If your roles come with group permissions already, consider leaving this as is. Zammad will list all organization and organization's user tickets in the user information screen. Administrators and every user with admin user permission can take over the session of others. This helps to check how a user sees configuration you have done. However, this option comes with great responsibility and will temporarily throw out the user of their session, if they are currently active in Zammad. Now before we continue, let's take a quick look into the user profile. This will help you to understand what settings enables what. Within the Appearance menu, you can adjust how Zammad looks. By default, Zammad will show the preferred light or dark mode according to your browser. This highly depends on the configuration of your local browser. You can override the setting to, for example, stick to the dark mode. The dark mode can be activated by pressing D anywhere outside editors and fields. Within language, you can change the web interface language. This only affects the user's view and has no effect on text modules and such. If your language is below a certain translation percentage, Zammad will show a dialog to request you to help to translate. Zammad has a central vPlate instance for translations. If you have some spare time, translating missing translations will not just help on your local instance, but also other Zammad users as well. The avatar menu allows you to do exactly what you think. You can adjust your avatar here, either by uploading an image or by using a webcam. By default, Zammad will try to retrieve an avatar from services like Gravatar upon the creation of a user. Just in case you wondered why an avatar might already be set. Of course, you can also remove existing avatars here. The password and authentication menu allow both, the option to reset your password and the two-factor authentication configuration. With Zammad 6.4 these two options can be enabled or disabled independently. By this you can disable the password reset function if you have a third-party LDAP authentication but still want to enforce two-factor authentications. Within overviews you can adjust the order of Zammad's overviews. This comes in handy if your instance has many overviews, to have the most important ones on the top, or if the order is not ideal for the individual user. This is only about the order of overviews, nothing more. The Devices menu will display all browser sessions your account is logged into right now. You can revoke existing sessions to log out certain browsers if needed. Within Token Access, you can create API tokens. An API token can only have the user's permission or less. An API token can be limited in their lifetime if required. API tokens should be preferred when using the API over username and password. The Linked Accounts menu is only relevant if you're using third-party authentications like Microsoft 365 or Google. You can manually link authentication providers to your local user account or unlink them. This menu is not necessarily needed if automatic account linking on initial login is activated. All the profile menu points I have talked about just now are available menus for both agents and customers. All following menus now are only available and relevant for agent users. Within Notifications, you'll find a notification matrix that allows you to define in which situations you want Zammad to notify you. Generally, these notifications will be used for the Phoenix on the upper left. On the right side of the matrix, you can also tick in notifications via email. By default, Zammad will send notifications via email. These can be quite over the top with very busy systems. Administrators have the possibility to override this configuration matrix for all existing agents. This option can be found within ticket settings. A less destructive way is just to store these settings without applying the current defaults to all agents. With the out-of-office function, an agent can set a colleague as their out-of-office replacement. That colleague will receive all ticket updates and notifications as if the ticket would be theirs. The owner assignment can stay at the original agent. This allows you to have a very efficient replacement without moving around and reduces the risk to miss updates on a ticket. Keep in mind that the replacement agents will not have more permissions on a group than they originally have. This means a replacement user ideally is from the same department with the same permissions. Last but not least, within Calendar you can use the iCal URL to subscribe it with your preferred calendar tool. As of now, this tool has to support iCal URLs with basic authentication. With this read-only calendar you can, for example, see a ticket reaches its reminder time. You can have individual ticket URLs for escalations, new and open tickets, and pending tickets, or the default URL that combines all of the three. The VIP functionality allows you to visualize that the user in question is something special. For example, you could mark the user as a paying customer for, let's say, a service contract. This way you can spot special users like contract stakeholders or contract contacts in an organization. Let's take a closer look at security options in the admin settings. If you have third-party login providers like Microsoft 365 or Zammad activated, having a login form on the login page may not be desired. For this reason, Zammad allows you to disable the username and password from. It enforces logging in via third-party logins and thus will deny login to people that do not have these accounts. Should anything be wrong with the third-party authentication, administrators can always request a password login. For this, the administrator has to enter their email address. Zammad will then email them a unique login URL for a one-time login. For this to work, the administrator account will require a local password. By default, any user can create a user account for Zammad. Any new signed-up user will automatically receive the customer role. You can disable the sign-up form to gain more control over the users being allowed to log into Zammad. Please note that this has no effect on emails from unknown users. Zammad will always create a new customer account if the user is unknown. Any user with a Zammad account can reset their password by default. This password reset only applies to the local password of its Zammad account. If an account has no local password yet, this process would add a local one. Usually, especially with LDAP or other login providers, you wouldn't want the user to have a local password. Local passwords, however, can make a lot of sense for administrative accounts as a fallback in case of login provider issues. For this reason, you can disable the lost password function at any time. If you're using local passwords in Zammad, you can define how complex passwords have to be. By default, Zammad will require passwords with at least one number, 2 lower and 2 uppercase characters, and a minimum length of 10 characters. You can optionally enable the requirement of special characters. Please note that the password requirements are not enforced for administrators setting the password of an user. In Zammad's philosophy, an administrator should not know the password of a user and also not communicate these with a user. A user should always reset their password themselves. By default, Zammad will lock a user account after 5 failed login tries. Users can reset the state by resetting their password. An administrator can unlock affected accounts in the user management at any time. Within Session Timeout, you can define how long a user session will be active if the user is being inactive. Inactive means no interaction with Zammad's UI within a certain time period. By default, a session times out after 4 weeks, but you can go down to 1 hour or even disable this behavior entirely. Zammad allows you to differentiate between admins, agents, and customers. Should a user have several of these permissions, Zammad will have the following preference: admin, agent, customer, default. The default setting is a fallback in case a user has none of the other permissions. These timeouts do not affect authentication accounts via third parties like, for example, Microsoft 365. Sessions of third-party authentications will remain active unless the user logs off or the browser is being closed. Within security, you can enable a second factor for the authentication. You can enable security keys and authenticator app. By default, Zammad will also provide the user with recovery codes if enabled. Please note that your users will not see the two-factor authentication preferences if no second factor is being enabled. By default, the second factor authentication is being enforced for agent roles. However, you can entirely disable enforcing or adjust these roles as needed. Users can be removed directly via the user management or the data privacy management. All tickets the user is customer in will be removed prior to user removal. If the user you want to remove is an agent, all customer tickets will be removed. If the user is owner of tickets, the ticket will not be removed, but their owner assignment will be removed. If the user is the last member of an organization, Zammad will also allow you to remove the organization together with the user. If you don't want the organization to be removed, simply select No instead. This is currently the only way to remove organizations from Zammad. Within data privacy, you can always see the current state of the removal task and all prior executed ones. That's all for now. I hope that this video gave you a good overview of the mentioned functions and how you can use them. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, take care.